was William Shakespeare who said a rose by any other name would still smell as sweet. But when it comes to a road, well, the names really do count. Hi everybody, welcome to the County Seat. Today I'm your host Chad Booth. Today on our program we are going to tackle the issue of RS2 477 roads and the impact that they have on rural Utah. Now, some of what we're going to look at is on a very personal level, some of it's at a policy level, but to begin the conversation, we really need to understand a little bit about RS2 477 roads. And so that we are not leaving anybody behind who's not been on these conversations in our previous episodes, we're introducing Brigham Larson, who's a new member of the County Seat team, and we've tasked him to go out and learn about RS2 477 roads and to share a fresh perspective of somebody who is just introduced to the topic with all of you. Here's Brigham.
Thanks, Chad. I'm Brigham Larson, and I'll admit to you guys, I had no idea what an RS2 477 road was before I started this job. But I wanted to make sure that everyone understands just how important they are. So I did the research, and here's what you need to know about these important rural roads. In the decade following the Civil War, the United States turned its attention to settling the vast territories of the West. In 1862, the Homestead Act was passed allowing anyone, black or white, male or female, who had not taken up arms against the U.S. during the war, to cultivate up to 640 acres of land in exchange for ownership. Accessing that land, though, required roads, and the federal government just didn't have money in order to build them. So in the Mining Act of 1872, they included a provision called Revised Statute 2477 that allowed anyone who built a road on undesignated federal land to receive a right-of-way title to the road in exchange for building it. So in essence, whenever a county, city, or state built or blazed a trail or road, they would receive an ownership property right in exchange for having done the work. However, that all changed in 1976 with the passage of the Federal Lands Policy Management Act, or FLPMA as it is more commonly known. The new law put an end to homesteading everywhere except Alaska and changed the development of roads from being a local decision to a federal permission. So from October 21st, 1976 forward, all new roads would require a permit from the federal government. These roads are known as Title V roads, which are different than RS2 477 roads, not in how they're used or how they're built, but in who owns them. An RS2 477 road is owned by the people that built and maintained it. A Title V road is a permitted road, which is exactly as it sounds, one that the federal government permits to be used, maintained, or improved. However, if for any reason they feel the permitted use is no longer beneficial, they can close it at will and a local community can't do anything about it. Since the passage of FLPMA, land agencies have refused to recognize any existing roads prior to 1976 as RS2 477, unless a court forces them to, which seems odd as many of the roads the federal government refuses to recognize can be found on U.S. government maps. So you might be asking yourself, what difference does it make? But to a county with large portions of the land controlled by federal land agencies, it could directly affect their transportation systems. If a federal land agency decides to change the use of the land and remove motorized travel, with a Title V road there is nothing to stop them. If, however, that road is recognized as an RS2 477 road, the federal government can't close it because they don't own it. If you think this is a moot point, just take a look at Kane County, who lost 40% of their transportation system when the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument was created. Monument managers refused to recognize the county's rights-of-way under RS2 477. This had a significant impact on the county's ability to access and maintain a viable transportation system for ranching, recreation, and other purposes. So you can see why the term RS2 477 means so much to rural communities across the state of Utah. If the road outside your house got shut down tomorrow by the federal government and you had no say in it, you'd probably fight back too. To understand more about the issues that are going on now with RS2 477, we'll be back with our panel of experts and we'll learn a little bit more about what we can do to help them fight for their roads. For the County Seat, I'm Brigham Larson.
Look south to adventure. Look south to beauty. Look south to San Juan County. Out here, the road goes on forever, and what you'll find will change how you see the world. Climb on your OHV and discover forgotten landscapes and vistas that challenge the imagination. From Blanding and Monticello to the cliff faces of Monument Valley, we're open and ready for you to explore. San Juan County, Utah's Canyon Country.
In a place that is beyond words, there is nothing to be said, except take your time in Bryce Canyon Country.
149 million years in the making, dinosaurs once roamed this land. Now they're found at the Dinosaur National Monument. Let's take you beyond the bones. We call it Dinosaur Land. You'll find it offers adventures and sights not seen anywhere else in the world. Come to Dinosaur Land, Vernal, Utah. You'll want to stay forever. The dinosaurs did.
All local products have a story of magical places, real people, and delicious recipes spanning generations. So go ahead and discover flavors you've never tasted and friends you never knew you had. Utah's own Discover Local Food.
Welcome back to the county seat. This is the part of the show in our new format where we have a discussion with what we consider to be revered experts on our topic. Our topic today, of course, being RS-2477 roads and the impact they've had on Utah. Joining us for our conversation is a commissioner who is from what I call the ground zero county, Kane County, where most of the controversy started well over a decade ago. And Jim Mattson is a commissioner in Kane County. We also had David Halverson, who is legal counsel for the Public Lands Policy Coordinating Office, or PLPCO, as it's known in the in circles. David, thank you for joining us.
Happy to be here.
Has the process of resolving the RS2, from the time that Jim's predecessor pulled up the stakes and put down county road signs, have we made any progress at being really close or having a system in place where we think we can resolve the issue?
I think as we start to look at this issue in over a little more time, and it's, it started out as more or less a administrative, kind of a technical issue. It devolved into a legal challenge as such, so we're seeing our way through that process to the point that where we can try to figure out how to maintain access. If you look at a county like ourselves, which is just under 4,700 square miles, access is a big question and a real big need that we have as we go through all of that. So do we end up becoming a preservation-based county and area, or do we actually have it set up so that our people and our friends and visitors that come to visit us can actually enjoy the total area that's out there? And as long as there is a movement underfoot, to limit our ability to travel to those areas, we're going to conduct our portion of this in terms of the lawsuit itself.
Just to kind of bring this into context, because most of the people watching this program right now do not live in Kane County. They live up here on the Wasatch Front, and they're thinking, well, what do I care about some dirt road to a windmill or a well that some rancher uses twice a year? Can you guys give me some examples of RS-2477 roads that people from the Wasatch Front are more likely to understand are RS-2477 and could be closed under a Title V category?
Well, I think the Hole in the Rock Road in Kane County is a prime example. Perhaps you can talk about that more specifically.
But given its location and how it accesses the eastern side of the county and what its impacts are as far as getting down to the national park and that portion of the Hole in the Rock itself, it provides that means by which we can enjoy that eastern edge of our county, as it also impacts Garfield County. So this isn't just a Kane County issue as such, it's very much a big part of that.
And it's not like roads like the Hole in the Rock Road are a great one that tourists from all over the state come to use. Mm-hmm. It's a historical site that people like to visit. And that's one of our roads. We do have roads that are used less often, but we have roads that are used every day, or roads that are very commonly used by people all over, by tourists, by ranchers, by farmers. There are roads that, there's a town in Twila County that I've been to where the only way to get there is on an RS-2477 road. And it's a good road, but if you close that road, the people that lived in that town couldn't get in and out. And so it's not just roads that are out in the middle of nowhere that nobody uses or only gets very sporadic use, but it's also roads that are used frequently and that are vital to the people that live locally, but also people that live here in the Wasatch Front that like to go there to recreate and see the land.
Well, prior to Mayor Workman, I believe Salt Lake County even had some RS-2477 roads that were abandoned during her administration. Is that not correct?
I'm not sure. I know Utah County does. Utah County has RS-2477 roads, so it's not just in southern Utah or in the rural counties. We have, on our litigation that we are pursuing now, we have 22 counties and about 12,000 roads across the state. And so it's really not just in Kane County or just in the counties in southern Utah, but it's all over the state that this is really a prime concern for the counties to make sure that they preserve access. A lot of these counties have such a high percentage of BLM land that if we don't have the roads, they can't access that land. There's not much good to having the land if you can't get to it, if you can't use it.
So do you think the federal government is just at a point where they're thinking, well, I don't want to give up the control just in case someday I want to do something different. And I want to boot out Best Friends Animal Sanctuary, so I don't want them to have access to their kitty kennels or whatever they call them up there, because that is an RS-2477 road up to those back
up Angel Canyon, you bet.
Yeah.
So we have other roads like that same situation that have been around and in use for however long. So what is the issue? Is it title? Is it access? What's the agenda? What's the federal government trying to accomplish here? And it's interesting to me whenever I think about this is that, way back in the 1800s there, the federal government sold lands in order to fund federal government operations. So if you bought a piece of real estate back in the backcountry somewhere, you had to figure out how to guarantee access, and oftentimes these are the very same roads that the federal government is trying to keep us from having title to. So it just does not add up in a logical way.
And up until 1976, the federal government was trying to promote building and using the road. That's why RS-2477 was passed. That's why it was on the books for 100 years, because they wanted people to be able to build roads, to be able to have access to the federal lands. It's not until 76 that we see the shift in the federal government's position of wanting to hold on and being much more reticent to allow access and to grant title.
That doesn't seem like a shift. That seems like a major seismic event, because it almost overnight in September of '76, it's almost like it took a 180-degree turn. But it took a little while for it to manifest. It wasn't the first real challenge on this when Garfield County paved the Burr Trail Road down through the Dry Canyon.
Yes, it goes back to that period of time, in the early 90s, over that whole issue, and so it raised this whole specter of this thing. So, to me personally, I think it's a bad faith effort on behalf of the federal government to deny access to areas that have been accessed ever since the 1900s.
If you were to shut off all the disputed roads in Kane County, the ones you're challenged, if they're just all to go away, what kind of impact would that have on your county?
I think the impact would be huge, not only from the standpoint of people that would have an expectation to be able to be out there, but what about the whole effort in terms of law enforcement, search and rescue, and all the rest of it that we need to have access to be able to manage ourselves in an effective way and fashion. So, like I said, it's bad faith all the way through.
And some of these roads, like I said, the only way to get to these areas are these roads. And I remember doing a deposition of a family in Grand County. They were getting a little older, and they have an adult son who's disabled, and they love to be out in the country. But they can't hike, they can't backpack into the backcountry. They can do it in a truck, they can do it on a four-wheeler, and so they love to be out there, but closing these roads to only backpackers is really limiting it to a very small percentage of people who love to be out in the country.
What do communities that are going to be affected by this, what do they need to be doing right now?
Well, I think stay informed on what the situation is, and make sure that your point of view and whatever it is that is of value to you is understood, and express those, you know, pro or con, but you get more directly involved instead of just making this a media event, and we all end up looking at this as if we live along paved highways and the backcountry is off limits. I think we need to have more direct investment in that kind of a process by our local residents.
I think making your opinion known to your elected representatives is very important, and I think, you know, I also mentioned the depositions that we're taking. We're always looking for new witnesses, people that were out on those roads prior to 1976, and so if people are interested in sharing their life experiences and their use of the roads, then that would be great to contact the state.
All right, let's take a time check on where we are, because the depositions have been going on for almost a decade, I think, haven't they?
Not quite that long, but they have been going on for a few years.
Okay, so how young can somebody be before their testimony doesn't count?
They have to be at least 60 years old when we take their deposition. And so it is important, because we're going back before 1976, we understand that that's the younger you get, the less likely you were out on those roads prior to 1976. But the way that the court has allowed us to take depositions is that we are allowed to take people who are 60 years or older.
Okay, and does the other side get to depose them at the same time?
They're present for the depositions. They can ask them questions and ask them about their use of the roads and those kind of things. But it's mostly the state that is taking charge of those depositions.
So I'm an 80-year-old woman. Oh, just because I can identify with being that these days. No, but I think I would like to help because I want to protect access to a place our families used, but I'm afraid of being deposed and having, you know, bright lights and somebody saying, "Where were you on the night of the?" I mean, what is a deposition like?
That's a great question. It's a pretty informal process. It's not antagonistic. The federal government that's there and the environmental groups that are represented are not asking a lot of tough grilling questions. It's really a conversation between myself, for example, if I'm the attorney there, and the witness, to ask you questions of, you know, do we go road by road, and we just want to get your life story. We want to learn why you were out on the roads. We want to learn, you know, were you hunting? Were you fishing? Was this a favorite spot that you like to go because it has a great viewpoint? Was it something that you went to check your cattle, or was it, you know, any of the reasons? And we just talk about why you were there, what you remember, how often you were on those roads, almost like an oral family history.
So some people might be afraid, if they don't have really good recall, that they could be convicted of lying to the federal government. I mean, that seems to be a pretty popular theme these days. Is that really a risk with this if they don't remember clearly?
We just want your best testimony, your best recollection. If we talk and you say, I don't remember a road, that's fine, we move on to the next one. And we just want to get your best understanding. We know we're talking about things that happened decades ago, and you are under oath, but we're just asking for your best recollection of what those roads meant to you and how you use them in your life.
Gentlemen, thank you for taking the time to talk to us about this. It's a very good conversation. You have seen an edited portion. If you'd like to see our entire discussion, you can go to our YouTube page, you can go to our website, or you can go to our Facebook and follow us there, and we encourage you to follow the county seat, and you will be able to see the entire conversation. So, bringing this to a personal point, when we come back from our break, we are going to talk to somebody that's been deeply involved in the RS-2477 process and what its impact potentially and literally means to him. Stay with us here on the County Seat.
What would you do with an extra day in Utah Valley? Explore the Wasatch Mountains? Snap a family photo at Bridal Veil Falls. Cool off on Utah Lake or the Provo River. No matter what you're searching for, you can find it in Utah Valley. Bring everyone together.
Let's be honest, you don't know much about Beaver County. Well, let me tell you about it. It's the birthplace of outlaw Butch Cassidy and adventurer Philo T. Farnsworth. Some of the best skiing in Utah is at Eagle Point. You've got camping, Canyon Breeze Golf Course, Crusher and the Tushers, Beaver Territorial Courthouse, snowmobiling, renewable energy, Pioneer Car Show, Squeaky Cheese, Ghost Towns to explore, best water in the country, Paiute ATV trails, Old Frisco kilns, horse races, hunting, fishing, and it's a good place to live. Beaver County, mountains of fun. I could tell you more, but why don't you come and see it for yourself?
Welcome back to the county seat. We're talking today about RS 2477 roads. Now, it's one thing for us to sit and talk about policy and for us to be in our own living rooms looking out at this problem. It's another if you live in a rural community and the roads and their access directly affect you. Well, we know one such person. His name is Mark Habishaw, and he was a former Kane County Commissioner who originally led the charge to protect road rights. And it has had an impact as that county lost nearly 60% of their transportation system with the creation of the Grand Staircase.
The Tribune referred to us as scufflaws and lawbreakers. Our lifestyle and quality of life is very different than that in the Wasatch Front. And that needs to be considered in dealing with issues in a rural county. We have in excess of 700 dirt roads that the public can enjoy, and they link Kane and Garfield and Washington County and Arizona to astounding recreational opportunities. Since 1866, with the passage of the Mining Act that contained Revised Statute 2477, the federal government offered an easement, a right-of-way, across federally managed lands as a public highway. That tradition went on for over 100 years, really without much controversy at all. In 1997, however, then Interior Secretary Babbitt passed oppressive regulations that eviscerated RS 2477. When the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument Plan was completed, it took over administrative jurisdiction of all county roads within the monument. And they began signing our county roads, and that led to us asking them to remove their signs. They didn't do that. We ultimately removed their federal signs that were obstructing and interfering with travel on our county roads, operated under federal law, mind you. That's critically important. We were ultimately vindicated when the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, in an en banc decision, completely overturned Federal Judge Tina Campbell's injunction against Kane County. She stated that we had no jurisdiction on any of these roads across federally managed lands without quiet title. 10th Circuit says not so fast. It's also interesting to note that the 2.5 years that we were under Federal Judge Tina Campbell's injunction saying that we had no jurisdiction on the roads, it meant we couldn't maintain them. And we didn't maintain them for 2.5 years. Neither did the federal government maintain them, although they claimed jurisdiction and administrative control over them. They claimed they didn't have the money. The roads form the lifeblood of the county. This is a large county, and there are private land holdings. It's important to access federally managed lands. And so the roads are extremely important to the lifestyle of a county, the culture, the custom, the traditions of a county, as well as the economic value of roads. The personal satisfaction of primarily the roads, but also including the backcountry, is difficult to put into words, but it is a sense of freedom. It's also the physical health that's involved in getting out in the backcountry in various activities, because if you ride a motorcycle, an ATV, you hike, you ride a horse, you mountain bike, you're using your body and your muscles and your brain in a way that's invigorating, and it's challenging to master those types of recreational opportunities. If you just pictured this land without any roads across it, what would you have? A vast emptiness, really.
Well, there you have it at a personal level. If you have personal experience with RS 2477 roads, or roads you used to ride on as a kid and are now closed, we'd like to hear from you about it. As a matter of fact, more importantly than you sharing it with us on the county seat through our social media pages, It would be really good if you would arrange to share that testimony with somebody at the Public Lands Policy Coordinating Office. They're collecting testimony that can be used in court to shore up RS 2477 rights. We'll be right back with the county seat and some final thoughts.
There's a little place on a Utah map where I was raised, where my heart's at, where the sagebrush grows wild and high, and the stars come out at night. Oh, there ain't nothing like being raised in the basin with a Ute reservation, skiing starvation, that Duchesne County life.
The Utah Farm Bureau began as a collection of farmers supporting each other to raise the food we enjoy. Today, Farm Bureau membership encompasses everyone, whether ranchers, growers, or just everyday folks like you and me. Members enjoy discounts on items like vehicles and ATVs, or insurance that's very affordable. You don't have to be a farmer to join, and dues are small, but together we make a big difference in keeping our food supply local and abundant. Join Utah Farm Bureau.
Hills Mall offers more than just shopping. Bring the whole family and enjoy SeaQuest Interactive Aquarium to feed the fish and exotic birds, hold live reptiles, and even swim with the stingrays. Or pump up the action and visit Dartside, Utah's premier soft foam dart tag arena. And don't forget the Great Room Escape, where you can challenge your friends to solving mysteries inside themed rooms. So come and experience great fun at the Layton Hills Mall and visit playindavis.com for other great activities.
Well, that's it for our show today on RS 2477. Let's stop where we are and look back down the road and see how far we've come. For those of you who have never discussed this before or joined us for the conversation, Brigham Larson gave us a review of what has happened and how we got to this point on RS 2477. We took a personal look at how they affect people in our conversation with Mark Habishaw, and we talked about, with our guests, the policy decisions of how we are going to overcome fighting these in the courts, road by road, case by case, because that will take thousands of years and billions of dollars. There's got to be a better way to do it. We would love you to share your comments on our Facebook page, and we'll look for you next week on the County Seat.